Good morning, boys and girls. All right, we are on chapter 3, Stout-Hearted 7. All afternoon, more and more wagons appeared on the roads. Horses, oxen, and mules stirred up the fearful dust. Catherine and Elizabeth, riding in the wagon with Mama and the little ones, could hardly breathe. Will it be like this all the way to Oregon? Mama called to Papa. Very likely. We'll get used to it, I guess. Late in the day, he drove off the road to a pleasant spot beside a little stream. He and the boys set up the tent and staked out the animals where they could graze but not get away. Mama spread out a cold supper and made coffee over a small fire. Then she said it was time for bed. Their first night sleeping in the wagon. Elizabeth snuggled close to Catherine and giggled. Isn't this fun? I think going to Oregon is just wonderful. How long do you think it'll take? All summer, Papa said, Catherine replied. Oh, goody! I wish it would take forever. In the morning, the sun shone and the birds sang in the trees. During the night, the dust had settled, and since they were among the first ones on the road, the air was clear and clean. What is that smell? Catherine asked Papa after they had been driving for a while. He sniffed. The smell of the river, the old big Missouri. We're coming near the landing where we cross. He turned back the wagon cover at the front. Catherine stood right by the high seat. As the road turned, she could see the glint of sunshine on the water. Then the river lay before them, gray and misty. It looks like it's 1,000 miles wide. How can we cross it? She asked. He pointed with his whip. Far away, Catherine saw something that looked like a small raft floating on a stream. That's the ferry, he explained. Mama came beside Catherine. It looks terribly dangerous. Not if the wagon wheels are properly blocked, Papa replied. You'll be perfectly safe. You will be with us, won't you? Mama asked worriedly. No, I'll have to swim the cattle across. They aren't allowed on the ferry. I'll be scared to death just looking at the water. Then don't look. Stay inside. You don't need to see the river at all, Papa suggested. Catherine shrugged. Papa, let's go back. Let's stay in Missouri. Papa turned his head. Catherine, I'm surprised at you. You are a Sager, remember? You can be brave and set a good example for the other girls. Promise me you will. Catherine drew a deep breath. I'll try. That's my girl. As they swung around another bend in the road, Mama exclaimed, Just look at all the wagons and people. Spread out like spines of a great fan pointing down to the river with rows and rows of wagons and tents. How long will it take all of them to cross? Mama asked. I don't know, Papa replied. A guide gave him a number card. When your turn comes, your number will be called. There are so many ahead of you. It will take several days, he was told. I'm glad we have some time to rest and watch how it works, Mama said. Papa swung the wagon into the space allotted to him with the tent beside it. He and the boys led the oxen away to the grazing grounds, but kept the cow nearby. Mama insisted that Matilda and Louise stay with her, but Catherine and Elizabeth stood shyly watching other children who were playing games in the open meadow. Soon they were running and shouting like the others. Going to Oregon got better every day, they told each other. Many families had been accompanied this far by friends and relatives. As parting time came near, much hugging and kissing went on, shouts of goodbyes, many tears and last-minute words of advice. Then, as the ferry moved away and grew smaller in the distance, the weeping friends dragged themselves up the bank to their own horses or wagons. Watching them, Catherine felt a touch of uneasiness. Could it be that going to Oregon was not so much fun as she and Elizabeth thought? When their own turn approached, Papa hitched Buck and Barney, their strongest team, to the wagon to hold it back as it slid down the incline to the ferry boat, then led them away. Catherine watched through the front peephole as Papa went to the waiting rowboat, tied Jake to the stern, and picked up the oars. Another oxen, one by one, followed Jake. Only Bossy seemed reluctant to get into the water, but John and Frank gave her a push, then ran for the ferry boat. Mama called to Catherine, "Better lie down so you won't fall if the wagon should lurch." Shouts, cries, sudden lunges, and they began to move out into the current of the wide Missouri, bobbing up and down like a chip. Louise screamed, and Mama cuddled her close. When Matilda whimpered, Catherine drew her up to where she could hide her head in her sister's arms. Catherine's own teeth chattered, but she patted Matilda and murmured, there, honey, it's all right." It seemed hours before they heard John shout, "Pa's across! I can see him going up the bank, leading Jake." Elizabeth could wait no longer. She scrambled up, steadying herself by grasping the churn, the sideboards, then the high seat until her eyes came up to the peephole. There, just a little way beyond the ferry boat, lay beautiful solid land once more. Catherine left Matilda on the feather bed and jumped up beside Elizabeth. They saw the workmen let down the gangplank. John untied the rope that held the wagon tongue. As the wagon rolled off the boat, he and Frank managed to guide it to one side where Papa could hitch on the oxen. There he came now, leading Jake, with the others trailing behind. Just then, a little dog appeared from nowhere and began to bark and leap at the legs of one of the oxen. The ox snorted and pawed, but the little beast kept barking and jumping. The ox tossed his head, swung around, and started back into the river. In an instant, every one of the oxen had plunged in behind. Even Jake tore the rope from Papa's hands and followed the others while the dog continued to bark and leap in frenzied excitement. Only Bossy didn't run. Papa stared toward the river, then turned back, shaking his head. Catherine knew he was saying, it was no use. He stood like a person in a dream, staring out across the water. "What's wrong?" Mama demanded. She pulled herself up to look out of the peephole. "Henry, what has happened? Where are the oxen?" Papa came over to the wagon, his face red and angry looking. "The oxen have gone back to Missouri. That dog, that..." "Henry, don't swear in front of the children." Papa took off his hat, brushed back his tousled hair, and put his hat back on. You know I never swear, Naomi. Now I'll have to go back after them. At least Bossy had the sense enough not to run. Tie her up, Frank, before she changes her mind. John, get a few men to help you roll the wagon further off to the side. Take care of your mother and sisters until I get back. No telling how far I'll have to go. He leaped to the ferry boat, now ready for the return trip, and was soon out of sight. Mama sank to the floor again and moaned, "Oh, I knew we shouldn't have ever left our home. I just knew it." Someone has to do something, Catherine thought. She lifted Matilda until she could see through the peephole. "See there? Brother John, he's getting those men to help him. They're going to give us a ride." As the wagon began to roll, she set Matilda down again, took her doll from its hook and said, "Hold Dolly so she won't be scared." Then she picked up Louise, Don't cry, baby. In a few minutes, John will come to get us. Mama sat up, wiping her tears. I'm sorry I went to pieces. I guess I'm not very brave. You are too. You're the bravest one of all, Catherine said staunchly. Mama patted her hand. You are a great comfort to me. If only Papa comes back safely. He will. That silly little dog. Oxen are stupid creatures, aren't they? No more stupid than I am. She laughed, and everything was all right again. John climbed back in at the back. We're all set in a good place, Ma. Frank and I are hungry. Could we have some dinner? Of course. You slice some ham. Katie, cut up those cold potatoes left from breakfast while Frank builds a fire. The little camp looked very cozy. Catherine thought as she spread a dish towel for a tablecloth. It was a good thing they were near the river, since it was the only place with any shade. The new leaves on the cottonwood trees were still small and lovely green, seen only in the early spring. In the cool breeze, they fluttered like butterflies. The shadows of floating clouds passed over the grass of the prairie like blue ships on a green ocean. Everything was clean and beautiful. This would be a nice place to live, she said as they ate. I was thinking the same thing, Mama answered. I wish... The frightened look came back into her eyes. Catherine said hastily, Probably Oregon will be lots prettier. John set Mama's chair in the shade where she could sit with her sewing and watch the river. The girls played nearby, and the boys helped people drag their wagons off the ferry every time it came in. One man came up to Mama and told her he had seen her husband on the other side, still chasing the oxen. He had said to tell her that he would be gone at least all night. Mama did not seem to worry until the third day, when the last of the waiting people had crossed the river and gone on. Then she wrung her hands and cried, What are we going to do? How can we ever catch up with the others? I wish we had all gone back to Missouri. The oxen were the only ones with any sense. Just before dark, the boys called out that they could see a rowboat coming. The girls rushed down to the river. Sure enough, it was Papa, with a string of oxen behind the board, and beyond them 2 other men on horseback swimming their mounts to keep the oxen from turning back. I don't know how to thank you, Papa said, when all were safely ashore and the troublesome animals hobbled. Now that it is over, he could laugh as he told Mama, They went all the way back to our log house before I could catch them. Never saw them travel so fast. If they would keep that pace, we'd be in Oregon in a couple of weeks. With Papa safely returned, Mama was her old self again. She baked some of her good biscuits, fried ham and potatoes, and opened one of her few glasses of jelly. The friends stayed all night, rolling up in blankets under the wagon. Early in the morning, they helped Papa hitch Buck and Barney, Jake and Ike to the wagon, lifted Mama over the end gate, and boosted in the children. Papa cracked his long whip, and once more, they started for Oregon. All right. Can you believe that those oxen got loose and went all the way back to their log home? It reminds me of when other animals, dogs or other animals, get lost and they go back to where their home was. All right, my friends, that was chapter 3. Tomorrow we'll be doing chapter 3 workbook page. Remember, tomorrow during our Zoom meeting, we're going to share our chapter 2 labeled and colored wagon. So have that ready. I'm so excited to see everyone's drawing. All right, my friends, I will talk to you later. Bye.